Hello, good afternoon. Carolina, Inspired to Change Hypnotherapy here, your expert in reducing stress and anxiety. Now, I've been a qualified hypnotherapist now for 5.5, 6 years. And it still amazes me how many people ask that question about, so you're going to wave pocket watches in front of me or get me to clap like a chicken? And of course, I take for granted that I know all of the science behind why we use hypnosis and the impact and benefit of doing that, because I know that inside out, back to front. And so, as I've had quite a few people just this week ask me that question, I thought, do you know what? I think I need to do a Facebook Live about this. I think I need to really explain about the hypno part of hypnotherapy. Because we all have lots of different misconceptions, and I know I did before I went to see a hypnotherapist myself. So, first of all, let me just say there is absolutely nothing magical or mystical about trance, okay? We all go into trance hundreds of times a day. I can promise you, okay? You know that bit on your commute where you're driving along and suddenly you're like, oh, I'm nearly home already. How did I get there? You've been in trance. You know that bit in front of the telly? I had this the other day. Mark came in to see me and went, oh, what are you watching? No idea. I totally zoned out. I was not paying any attention to what was on the telly at all. I'd just been in trance. Those of you who are studying or still at school, you'll do this in class and in lectures, okay? That bit where you just drift off. That's all trance is. It's nothing magical, nothing mystical. It's just what our brain does naturally. And what our brain is doing when it's in that trance state is processing. It's processing information. It's problem solving. It's taking all of the stuff that it's taken in during the day and deciding what to do with it. And that's really important, because if we don't do that, then all that stuff builds up and we get that horrible overwhelm feeling. So trance is just where our brain is naturally processing and problem solving. So when I use that in a therapeutic environment, I'm using it quite strategically, because you know that bit when you're on your commute and you're drifting off into trance, yeah, that's fine, that's one thing. But when you come and see me, I want to make sure that we are using that time to help you to achieve what you want to achieve. So the way I use trance is much more strategic than what we do when we just drift off naturally day to day. So now again, another misconception about trance. I don't go charging into your brain telling you what you're going to do, okay? It doesn't work. All that happens is that part of your brain shuts down and goes, who's this crazy lady coming in telling us what to do? So that's not what trance is. The kind of language that I use when I'm helping people to go into a trance is what we call really indirect suggestion. I'm just suggesting to your brain that there might be better, alternative, different ways of being that will help you to achieve what you want to achieve. And why that works so well, why that's so powerful, is not because of what I say in trance, but because of what we talk about before you go into trance, okay? Because remember, I said trance is where your brain is processing information, is deciding what to do with it, what changes to make based on that information. So what we talk about before trance becomes actually even more important than the language I use during trance, because we're feeding your brain with all the information we want it to work on in that state. So I kind of see it as a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, okay? The first part of the session, we're laying all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle out on the table. And trance is where the brain is putting together all of the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. But there's one final piece that makes the magic happen. What's the best way to finish a jigsaw puzzle? Is to have the lid with the picture on it so you know what it's supposed to look like. And it's the same for our brain. Okay, so a big part of sessions with me is us looking at, if this problem wasn't here anymore, if you weren't struggling anymore, or if you'd have achieved what you wanted to achieve, what would be different? What would it look like? What would it feel like? What would you be doing? What would you not be doing? Who would notice? What would they notice? And we create the lid of the jigsaw puzzle, that lovely image of what we want to achieve. so that when our brain goes into trance, it knows what that end result is supposed to be, so it can pick the right pieces of the jigsaw puzzle and put them together in the right way. Because all that happens in trance is we're calming down that busy overthinking part of the brain that gets in the way all the time, okay? And that allows that lovely problem solving, thinking, solution finding part of the brain to come to the fore, to look at that image that we've created and gone, oh, that's how you want things to be. No problem. Let's look at all this information that we've got here. Caroline said that stuff about how the brain worked. We talked about that situation that went really well over here. There's some things we can learn from that. That's all the other information that we've got stored in our brain up here. Your brain is able to access that, use all that information, and then decide what it's going to do with it. So that's why I use hypnosis and trance in my therapy sessions, because without that, it's a useful conversation, but we're not necessarily making any changes. Actually allowing our brain to go in at a deeper level and make those changes means that in the following week we just find ourselves naturally doing these things. We suddenly realise that we've done something that we wouldn't have done before, or something was easier that would have been quite hard before, because our brain's got on board with that picture and has already started the process of working towards it, and it's looking for those opportunities to achieve that. So that's all trance is. Sorry guys, nothing magical, nothing mystical. It's just about allowing your brain to do what it does best without all of that overthinking getting in the way. So next time you're thinking about hypnotherapy, remember, there's no shaking watches, okay? There's no clucking like the chickens. The only chickens that cluck around here are the ones at the bottom of my garden, okay? It's about harnessing the power of your brain, harnessing what it does naturally, and just getting it to work in a more strategic way. And if you think about what we talked about the times when we naturally go off into trance, it's just where your brain was so focused on one thing that everything else faded into the background. And that's how I get you guys into trance. I get you focused on something. Usually imagining a lovely beach or a lovely garden or walking down a set of stairs. And when I get your brain totally focused on that, you just naturally go off into a trance state. Believe me. There's not a single person that's ever come and sat in my therapy chair over the last 5.5, 6 years who hasn't gone into trance. Because we do it naturally. So it's not something difficult to do. Again, I'm just harnessing the power of what your brain already does. So I hope that's given you a bit of a different understanding of what the hypno part of hypnotherapy is all about, and why we use trance, because it's so powerful. It allows your brain to come up with your solutions, and that's so much more powerful than anything I can tell it to do. So if you have any questions about what I've talked about there, or I haven't answered any questions that you have about hypnosis, put them below and I shall do my best to answer them. I shall speak to you all soon. Take care.